Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Chadtronic, here today reacting to a Fox News report on the Nintendo DS. This video was suggested by Seafoam Gaming, so let's give it a chance.
Kids can't put it down.
It has lots of graphics.
And who can blame them?
It's extremely fun.
The thing's a blast.
Oh, dude, awesome.
The dog doesn't seem to care, but what makes Nintendo DS different from other handheld game devices...
It's got dual screens, so hence the name Nintendo DS Dual Screen.
That's right, 2 screens. You can play Game Boy and Nintendo DS games on it. And what's even more, friends like Marissa and Melanie can play against each other, even if they're in different cars.
We were several car lengths apart, and sure enough, they were playing the game together.
That's a very specific feature to point out. You can play against each other, even in different cars. Because that's always the normal situation people are in when they want to play games against each other. They're in different cars.
That's because the Nintendo DS units seek out other DS units to play with. No wonder gaming gurus predict
Nintendo DS is going to redefine portable handheld gaming the way iPod is redefining music.
Well, stop the music. Because it's also redefining how vulnerable your kids are to child molesters.
What? I'm sorry.
You see, along with the game capability, Nintendo DS comes with a feature called PictoChat.
You can chat with your friends.
Kids know what it is.
You can talk to other people from a long distance. I've PictoChatted with my neighbor.
Problem is, parents don't.
I don't see that piece advertised on commercials.
Well, let me explain. You open the DS unit, you turn it on, you push PictoChat, and your DS unit is an open book. Anyone can write your child messages, send them sketches. Anyone who has a DS unit.
Yes, inform your kids not to PictoChat with strangers, or you could be ending up with the likes of having them chat with this gentleman that you're seeing right now.
It's that simple.
The fact that someone could possibly communicate with him without me knowing hadn't crossed my mind.
Here's an example of what can happen. With Melanie and Marissa upstairs in the bedroom, I was downstairs sending them messages.
What is going on here?
What's your dog's name? What's your name? Where do you go to school? Where do you live? Mom was watching as Melanie and Marissa answered my questions, and she didn't like what she saw.
Especially when I saw Melanie write in the address.
Plus 2, 4, 5.
Granted, the girls knew it was me sending the messages, but they'd only met me minutes before.
Okay, let me get this straight. Hypothetically, I have a gentleman in the other room sending me messages to my Nintendo DS. They ask me where I live while they're in the other room of my house. I don't think that is very confidential information at that point.
Nintendo claims the 2 DS units have to be within 65 feet of each other for them to communicate. But when we set up 2 units in a local shopping mall, that's not what we found. From 90 feet. Let's try 120 feet, nearly double what Nintendo says the range is. All right, we've pushed it back now to 200 feet. Let's see if we can send a message from here. 250 feet. All right, we now have more than 300 feet, more than a whole football field between these 2 Nintendo DS units, and yet still, I can send a message.
Holy crap. I tell you what, if anything, this news report is making me want to go out and buy a Nintendo DS. Nintendo, you guys make solid products.
Even when I went outside the doors, my Nintendo DS was still able to write to the other one. Suddenly, Michael's mom realizes the possibilities get pretty creepy.
If we were in an airport or at a train station, and just with the close proximity of them being able to, possibly be communicating with him.
I'm starting to feel that if I don't have a Nintendo DS, I'm clueless as to what sexual predators could be around me. What are you to do if you don't have one of these devices? How are you to know that there is a nearby sexual predator if you don't own a Nintendo DS? This sounds like something that is probably a must-have for the safety of your children. And it's probably safe to assume that anybody else who's in range of you that owns a Nintendo DS is probably a child molester. Most likely.
And remember Marissa chatting with her friend in the other car? That means a molester driving along could see your child in the back seat and start sending messages while you're in the front seat, totally oblivious to what's happening.
Okay, slow down. Let's be reasonable here. The chances of two cars side by side, one with a child molester driving, you think that person has time to crack open their DS and send your child Picto chat messages while driving their vehicle? I think the chances of that are pretty slim.
Nintendo is well aware of the risk. Both the owner's manual and the company's website warn parents about PictoChat and recommend talking to your kids about what to do if they get a message from someone they don't know. Brenda and Chantel are both great moms, but like most parents, they didn't think to read the owner's manual for their child's game.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yes, absolutely. Nintendo didn't forewarn anybody of the risks that a stranger could send you messages on your Nintendo DS. You should never have to talk to your kids and educate them on the risks of certain things happening. That should be the responsibility of companies like Nintendo, obviously.
It's a communication tool. It's not just a visual tool.
Now, Michael, Marissa, and Melanie know exactly what to do if a stranger tries to PictoChat them.
I'd sign off. I'd say bye.
I'll turn it off.
If a stranger sends you messages, kids, you don't have to turn off your DS. You can still enjoy the games in which the reason you bought it for. Just don't chat back. Why are they scaring kids to an extent so much that if anybody messages them that they don't know, they have to shut off their Nintendo DS? That's letting the terrorists win, you guys.